Sarah Jensen stands in a dusty auction yard, counting the last of her meager savings as she eyes a limping chestnut mare that no one else seems to want. Her life savings of $1 feels heavy in her palm, the final remnant of her dreams to build a life on the Wyoming frontier. What she doesn't realize is that this discarded horse, this broken creature that everyone has overlooked, carries the bloodlines of the fastest racehorses in England. Thunder, as she come to name him, isn't just lame, he's carrying a legacy that will change the frontier forever, if only someone will see past his temporary injury to the champion within. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The frontier town of Laramie bustled with activity as Sarah pushed through the crowd toward the makeshift auction pen. The spring of 1878 had brought new settlers, new opportunities, and new challenges to Wyoming Territory. For most, it represented the promise of a fresh start. For Sarah, it was her last chance. "Final lot of the day," the auctioneer called, his voice carrying across the dusty yard. One chestnut gelding. Owner claims he was once a riding horse, but as you can see, he gestured dismissively at the limping animal being led into the pen. He's got a bad foreleg. Might be salvageable for hide or glue. The crowd's attention was already waning, men turning away to light cigars or discuss their purchases. No one wanted a lame horse in a land where mobility meant survival. Sarah, however, couldn't take her eyes off the animal. Despite his pronounced limp and dull coat, there was something about the way he held his head, a dignity that seemed at odds with his current state. "Starting bid at $5, the auctioneer called half-heartedly. When no hands raised, he sighed. $3? The silence stretched uncomfortable. The horse's owner, a hard-faced man in expensive coat, scowled from the edge of the crowd. $1? The auctioneer tried, his tone making it clear he just wanted to be done with this final lot. Sarah felt the silver dollar in her pocket, her entire savings, the last of what she'd managed to scrape together working as a seamstress since arriving out west 6 months ago. It was meant to be a down payment on a small parcel of land, the beginning of the independence she'd dreamed of when leaving Boston. $1, she called out, her voice surprisingly steady. The auctioneer's eyebrows shot up, more surprised that anyone had bid than at the amount. $1 bid. Do I hear $1.50? The crowd had turned to stare at her, a slight woman in a patched dress with determined eyes. Going once, going twice. Sold to the lady for $1. As Sarah approached to claim her purchase, she caught the former owner muttering to a companion, "Good riddance to bad investments. That English thoroughbred was the worst mistake I ever made. Paid $300 for him before he went lame." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Thoroughbred? She knew little about horses, but everyone knew that. Thoroughbreds were the finest racing stock in the world. Could it be possible that this discarded animal had valuable bloodlines? The handler thrust the lead rope into her hands with a derisive snort. "Hope you didn't have any plans for riding him, miss. That leg's been bad for months. Previous owner tried everything." Sarah nodded, meeting the horse's eyes. They were a deep, intelligent brown, watching her with what seemed like cautious interest. "What's his name?" she asked. "Lightning," the handler said with a mocking laugh. "Ironic, ain't it? Can barely walk, let alone run." As Sarah led Lightning away from the auction yard, she could feel the weight of amused stares on her back. A woman alone with a lame horse in Wyoming Territory. It was the beginning of either a tragedy or a joke, depending on who was telling the story. Her rented room at the back of Mrs. Holloway's boarding house didn't include stable privileges, but the elderly widow had a small shed behind the kitchen garden. "He can stay there while you figure out what to do with him," Mrs. Holloway said, eyeing the limping horse dubiously. "Though what possessed you to buy a lame horse instead of that parcel you've been saving for?" "I'm not sure," Sarah admitted, watching as Lightning explored his new shelter. Something about him. I couldn't let him go to the glue factory. That evening, Sarah sat in the dirt beside her new purchase, gently examining his injured leg by lantern light. The swelling was pronounced just above the fetlock, hot to the touch. Lightning stood patiently, occasionally lowering his muzzle to her shoulder as if offering encouragement. "We're quite the pair, aren't we?" she murmured, stroking his neck. "Both of us out here with no family, trying to find our place." She had learned about poultices and liniments during her childhood on her family's small Massachusetts farm. Before the influenza had taken her parents and before the bank had taken their land, her father had taught her that proper care could heal most equine injuries. What these Western men saw as a lost cause, she recognized as an inflammation that might respond to treatment. "Let's make a deal," Sarah said, rising to her feet. "I'll help you heal, and maybe somehow you can help me build a future out here." For the next 2 weeks, Sarah divided her time between her seamstress work and tending to Lightning. Each morning, before dawn and again after finishing her day's labor, she applied cool compresses to his leg, followed by a poultice of comfrey and yarrow she'd gathered from the edges of town. She massaged his leg gently, working to reduce the swelling, and led him on slow walks to maintain his strength without straining the injury. Mrs. Holloway watched these ministrations with growing interest. "You handle that animal like you know what you're doing," she observed one evening, bringing Sarah a cup of tea as she worked. "My father raised horses, though nothing as fine as Lightning might be," Sarah explained, accepting the tea gratefully. "I think he's improving. The swelling's down considerably." Indeed, Lightning's limp was less pronounced, and his coat had begun to regain its luster with regular brushing and better feed. Sarah had sacrificed part of her own meals to ensure the horse received proper nutrition, knowing that healing required strength. By the end of the second week, Lightning was placing his full weight on the injured leg, though Sarah still restricted his movement to gentle walks. It was during one of these walks that they encountered James Cooper, the town's horse trader and livery stable owner. "That's Herman Vogel's lame thoroughbred," Cooper called out, approaching with a critical eye. "Heard some woman bought him for $1. That'd be you, I suppose?" Sarah nodded, suddenly self-conscious. "He's improving." Cooper circled Lightning thoughtfully, his expert gaze missing nothing. "I'll be damned," he muttered, crouching to examine the formerly swollen joint. "You've actually got the swelling down." Vogel had 3 different fellows look at this horse, including me. We all told him the same animal was finished. "He just needed time and proper care," Sarah said, unable to keep a note of pride from her voice. Cooper straightened, eyeing her with new respect. "Might be." He ran a hand along Lightning's back, feeling the muscle beneath the improved coat. "This is quality stock, you know. Vogel imported him from Kentucky, and before that, the bloodline came straight from England. Paid a small fortune." "The auctioneer mentioned he was a thoroughbred," Sarah said. Cooper nodded. "Sire was Storm Warning, one of the fastest horses to race in Louisville. I'm James Cooper, by the way. I run the livery at the edge of town. Sarah Jensen." "Well, Miss Jensen, if you continue having success with this animal, bring him by the stable. I might have work for someone with your touch with horses. Lord knows I see enough injuries in my line." As Cooper walked away, Sarah felt a small spark of hope ignite. A job at the livery would pay better than seamstress work and would align more closely with her childhood experience. Perhaps her impulsive purchase hadn't been so foolish after all. That night, as she applied the last poultice of the day, Sarah allowed herself to dream again. Not just of survival, but of building something meaningful in this rugged territory. "You and me, Lightning," she whispered. "We're going to prove them all wrong." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story, the transformation. Lightning over the next month astonished everyone who had witnessed his sorry state at the auction. His coat now gleamed like burnished copper in the summer sun. His muscles had filled out with proper feeding and gradually increased exercise, and most remarkably, his limp had disappeared entirely. Sarah had indeed taken Cooper up on his offer, securing part-time work at the livery stable while maintaining her seamstress position. The arrangement allowed her to learn more about horse care while saving money more quickly than before. Lightning stayed in a small corner stall at Cooper's stable, the arrangement part of Sarah's compensation. "I've never seen anything like it," Cooper admitted one evening as they watched Lightning trot smoothly around the paddock behind the stable. "That horse moved like he was walking on broken glass 2 months ago. Now look at him." Sarah smiled, leaning against the fence. "He just needed someone to believe in him." Cooper shook his head with grudging admiration. "It was more than belief, Miss Jensen. It was skilled care and patience. You've got a gift." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a group of riders, trail dust coating their clothes and horses. Cooper excused himself to see to their needs, leaving Sarah to continue Lightning's evening exercise. She had just fitted a halter to lead him back to his stall when one of the newcomers approached the paddock. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with the sun-darkened skin of a man who lived outdoors. "That's a fine-looking animal," he commented, studying Lightning with an expert eye. "Unusual to see a thoroughbred out here. You racing him?" Sarah laughed at the absurdity of the question. "Racing? No, he was lame until recently. I'm just grateful he can walk properly now." The stranger's eyebrows rose. "Lame? I wouldn't have guessed it to look at him now." He extended a hand over the fence. "Miles Hawkins. I manage the Rocking H Ranch over by Green River. Sarah Jensen." She shook his hand, noting the calluses that matched her own. "The Rocking H is expanding our breeding program," Hawkins explained. "Looking for good stock to improve our line. A thoroughbred like yours could be valuable, even if he's not racing anymore." "He's not for sale," Sarah said automatically, protective of the animal who had become her closest companion. Hawkins smiled, unoffended. "Wasn't making an offer yet, Miss Jensen. But I'd be interested to see how fast he can run, now that he's healed. Sometimes a horse that can't race competitively anymore can still produce foals with speed." Sarah hesitated. She had been so focused on healing Lightning that she hadn't considered testing his speed. The horse had regained his strength and soundness, but she had deliberately kept his exercise moderate. "I haven't pushed him," she admitted. "I was afraid of re-injury." "Understandable," Hawkins nodded. "But if you change your mind about seeing what he can do, there's an informal race meet happening outside town next Saturday. Local ranchers mostly, nothing professional. Might be worth bringing him, just to watch if nothing else." After Hawkins departed, the seed of curiosity he had planted took root in Sarah's mind. What if Lightning could run again? Not just walk or trot, but truly run as his breeding suggested he should. The next morning, she arrived at the stable earlier than usual. The sky was just beginning to lighten in the east as she led Lightning to the open field behind the livery. "What do you think, boy?" she asked, stroking his neck. "Should we see what you can do?" Sarah mounted carefully. She had only ridden him at a walk thus far, and urged him into a trot. Lightning responded eagerly, moving with the smooth gait of a well-bred horse. Gradually she increased the pace to a canter, feeling the powerful muscles working beneath her. Lightning's ears were pricked forward, his whole body seeming to vibrate with energy long suppressed. Taking a deep breath, Sarah gave him his head and pressed her heels gently to his sides. The thoroughbred exploded into a gallop that took her breath away. The ground blurred beneath them, the cool morning air rushing past as Lightning stretched into a run that spoke of his heritage. Sarah had ridden horses all her life, but never one that moved like this, as if gravity were merely a suggestion, each stride eating up the earth with effortless power. She pulled him up after just a short distance, not wanting to overwork him on this first test. Lightning danced sideways, clearly ready for more, but settled under her calming hand. "Good Lord," came Cooper's voice from the stable doorway. He stood watching, mouth agape. "Did you see how fast?" He shook his head in disbelief. "I thought you might have a heeled riding horse there, Miss Jensen. I didn't realize you had a lightning bolt." The name stuck, though his papers listed him as Oxford's Warning in recognition of his illustrious bloodline. From that day forward, everyone in Laramie knew Sarah's dollar horse as Thunder. Over the next week, Sarah carefully increased Thunder's running, monitoring his formerly injured leg closely for any signs of strain or inflammation. To her relief and growing excitement, the leg remained cool and sound. Whatever injury had plagued him seemed fully healed, and with each gallop, Thunder moved with increasing confidence and speed. Cooper, recognizing the potential before them, became an enthusiastic supporter. "You could win at that race meet Hawkins mentioned," he insisted. "Those ranch horses are sturdy, but they don't have Thunder's breeding or speed." "I've never raced a horse," Sarah protested. "And I certainly haven't trained one for racing." "Racing's in his blood," Cooper countered. "He knows what to do better than most trainers could teach him. You just need to give him his head and hang on." By the time Saturday arrived, word had spread through town about Sarah's miraculous rehabilitation of Herman Vogel's worthless thoroughbred. A small crowd gathered to watch as she led Thunder from the livery toward the makeshift racetrack established in a flat meadow outside Laramie. The race meet was a casual affair, typical of frontier gatherings. Local ranchers and townsfolk had assembled to race their horses on a straight quarter-mile course marked with flags. Wagons and blankets lined the track, families making a day's entertainment of the event with picnic baskets and jugs of lemonade or stronger spirits. Miles Hawkins found Sarah as she was checking Thunder's tack one final time. "You decided to run him after all," he observed with a smile. "We'll see how he does," Sarah replied, trying to mask her nervousness. "I've never raced before." "Just keep him straight and let him run," Hawkins advised. "A horse like this knows his business." He hesitated, then added, "Fair warning, there's some serious money changing hands on these races. Some folks might not take kindly to an unknown horse and rider coming in and upsetting expectations." Sarah glanced around, noticing for the first time the men exchanging cash and handshakes at the edges of the gathering. "I'm not here for the wagering," she said. "I just want to see what Thunder can do." The first few races featured working ranch horses, sturdy, practical animals built for endurance rather than speed. They ran with honest effort, their riders whooping and urging them on while spectators cheered their favorites. When it came time for Thunder's race, Sarah found herself lined up against 3 local ranchers, including a door-faced man named Harlan Beck, whose gray stallion had won the previous 2 races handily. "This is the last heat, folks," the starter announced. "Quarter-mile straight run. Riders ready?" Sarah's heart pounded as she leaned forward in the saddle, feeling Thunder's muscles bunched and ready beneath her. The thoroughbred was unnaturally still, all his attention focused forward as if the starting signal had awakened something primal in his blood. "Go!" The starter's arm dropped, and the horses exploded from the line. For the briefest moment, Thunder was a half-length behind as the other horses lunged forward. Then, as if a switch had been flipped, the thoroughbred's powerful hindquarters drove him forward with acceleration that left Sarah breathless. They passed the first competitor within seconds. By the halfway mark, they had drawn even with Beck's gray stallion. Beck glanced sideways, his face contorting with surprise and then anger. He drove his spurs cruelly into his horse's flanks and leaned forward, shouting encouragement. The gray responded gamely, finding another gear. But Thunder was running with joy now, each stride powerful and precise. Sarah could feel the sheer exhilaration flowing through his body as he pulled ahead of the gray, then opened up a gap that widened with every heartbeat. She did nothing but maintain her balance and give him his head, understanding that this moment belonged to Thunder more than to her. They crossed the finish line 3 lengths ahead of Beck's stallion. the crowd erupting in a mixture of cheers and disappointed groans as betting fortunes were made and lost in that instant. Sarah slowed Thunder gradually, turning him in a wide circle as she absorbed what had just happened. They had won, and not by a small margin. The thoroughbred wasn't even breathing hard as she guided him back toward the gathering. Cooper was the first to reach them, his weathered face split by an enormous grin. "Did you see that?" he demanded of no one in particular. "Did you see how he just floated over the ground?" Miles Hawkins approached next, his expression thoughtful. "That's no ordinary thoroughbred," he said. "Even accounting for the difference in breeding from these ranch horses, he's exceptional. You've got yourself a true champion, Miss Jensen." Not everyone shared in the celebration. Harlan Beck dismounted from his gray with a scowl, pushing through the crowd towards Sarah. "What kind of trick is this?" he demanded. "Bringing a ringer to a friendly local race?" "There's no trick, Mr. Beck," Sarah replied calmly, though her heart raced. "Thunder is my horse, fair and square. A woman shows up with a thoroughbred worth hundreds, maybe thousands, and expects us to believe she came by it honestly?" Beck spat on the ground. "I lost good money on this race." Cooper stepped between them. "The lady bought that horse fair and square at public auction. For $1, because your friend Herman Vogel couldn't recognize value when it had a temporary setback. Your poor wagering isn't her concern." A murmur ran through the crowd as people processed this information. The story of the dollar horse that had just outrun the fastest mount in the county spread like wildfire through the gathering. "Is that true?" someone called out. "You paid just $1 for that thoroughbred?" Sarah nodded, stroking Thunder's neck as he stood calmly amid the commotion. "He was lame at the time. No one else wanted him." "And you healed him?" another voice asked. "I gave him time and proper care," Sarah corrected. "He did the healing." Miles Hawkins had been watching this exchange with interest. Now he stepped forward, addressing Sarah but pitching his voice to carry to the crowd. "Miss Jensen, my offer stands. The Rocking H would pay handsomely for a stallion of this quality to improve our breeding stock. $500. A collective gasp went up from the onlookers. $500 was a fortune in the territory, enough to buy a decent parcel of land with money left over for a small cabin and supplies. Sarah's hand stilled on Thunder's neck. $500 was more than she had dreamed of saving in years of work. It would secure her future, give her the independence she had come west seeking. All for a horse she had purchased for a single silver dollar. Yet as she looked into Thunder's intelligent eyes, she knew what her answer must be. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hawkins, he's not for sale at any price." The crowd's reaction was immediate exclamations of disbelief and renewed interest in the woman who would turn down a small fortune. Even Cooper looked shocked. $1,000, Hawkins countered, raising eyebrows even further. "Final offer." Sarah shook her head, leading Thunder away from the crowd. "Some things aren't measured in dollars, Mr. Hawkins. This horse gave me back my hope when I had almost none left. You can't put a price on that." As she walked away, Sarah heard the conversations exploding behind her speculation about Thunder's value. Debates about her wisdom or foolishness, calculations of what might be won if such a horse were raced professionally. None of it mattered. What mattered was the solid presence beside her, the horse who had transformed from a discarded, broken creature into a champion through nothing more than patience, care, and belief. "Just you and me, Thunder," she murmured, echoing her words from that first night. "We're going to build something special here." She couldn't know then how prophetic those words would prove to be, or how Thunder's speed would soon change not just her fortunes, but the very landscape of racing on the frontier. All she knew was that some partnerships transcended simple economics. They became the foundation upon which dreams could be built, one heartbeat at a time. News of Thunder's victory spread through Laramie and beyond with remarkable speed. Within days, visitors began appearing at Cooper's livery stable, hoping to glimpse the dollar horse that had outrun the finest mounts in the county. Some came with offers, ranchers seeking to buy Thunder for their breeding programs, gamblers looking to secure his racing services, curious onlookers simply wanting to see if the stories were true. Sarah met them all with the same polite but firm refusal. Thunder wasn't for sale, and while she was considering racing him again, she wouldn't be rushed into decisions about his future. "You can't just hide a horse like that," Cooper advised as they watched another disappointed visitor depart. Words already reaching Cheyenne and Denver. Racing men are asking questions. "I'm not hiding him," Sarah replied, brushing Thunder's gleaming coat as the horse dozed contentedly in the afternoon sun. "I'm being careful. He was injured once before, and I won't risk that happening again because we moved too quickly." Cooper couldn't argue with her caution, not after witnessing how her patient care had transformed the once lame thoroughbred. Still, he couldn't help but see the opportunities slipping past. "Hawkins was right about one thing," he said. "A horse like Thunder could be worth a small fortune in the right races. The Territorial Fair in Cheyenne is coming up next month. They have proper racing there, with real purses." Sarah paused in her brushing, considering. "How much are these purses?" $200 for the main event last year. Probably more this year with the railroad bringing in more people and money. Cooper leaned against the stall door. "That's just the beginning. Denver's races pay even better, and if he's as good as I think he is, you could take him all the way to St. Louis or even Kentucky eventually." The idea was simultaneously thrilling and terrifying. Sarah had come west seeking independence, a quiet life built on honest work. Racing Thunder professionally would mean entering a world dominated by men with money and connections, neither of which she possessed. Yet the potential rewards were impossible to ignore. With her seamstress work and part-time position at the livery, she was barely staying ahead of her expenses. The kind of money Cooper was describing could transform her prospects entirely. "I'll think about Cheyenne," she conceded, "but only if I'm confident he's ready." That evening, as Sarah sat on an upturned bucket outside Thunder's stall mending a torn shirt, Miles Hawkins appeared at the stable door. He removed his hat as he approached, his manner respectful. "Evening, Miss Jensen. Hope I'm not intruding." "Mr. Hawkins," Sarah acknowledged, setting aside her sewing. "Come to make another offer?" He smiled. "No, ma'am. I know a firm decision when I hear one. Actually, I came with a proposition of a different sort." Hawkins explained that he had connections in Cheyenne people involved in organizing the Territorial Fair and its races. He could ensure Thunder was entered in the main event, bypassing the usual qualification requirements for a horse without a racing record. "Why would you do that?" Sarah asked, suspicious of his motives after his previous attempt to purchase Thunder. "2 reasons," Hawkins said candidly. "First, I'd like to see what that horse can really do against proper competition. And second, I'm willing to bet he'll win, which would make my recommendation look very good indeed." "You want to use him to enhance your reputation," Sarah translated. Hawkins shrugged, unembarrassed. "It's a fair exchange. You get entry to a race that would normally be closed to you, and I get the satisfaction of discovering a champion. If he wins, we both benefit." Sarah considered the offer. Despite her initial wariness, she found herself warming to Hawkins. Unlike many men she'd encountered, he seemed to respect her decisions rather than dismissing them as feminine foolishness. "What would I need to do?" she asked finally. "Train him properly for the next 3 weeks," Hawkins replied. "I can advise you if you'd like. Then transport him to Cheyenne 2 days before the race to let him rest from the journey. I'll handle the entry paperwork." It was a generous offer, one that opened doors that would otherwise have remained firmly closed to a woman of Sarah's limited means and connections. Still, she hesitated. "And what if he loses?" Hawkins smiled. "Miss Jensen, I've been around racehorses my entire life. My father bred and trained them in Virginia before the war. I've seen horses run at Saratoga and Belmont Park. Your Thunder has the look of a true champion about him. But even if I'm wrong, there's no shame in losing to good competition. It's how we learn." The decision wasn't made that evening, but over the following days, Sarah found herself increasingly drawn to the idea. Cooper offered the use of a proper saddle more suitable for racing than her old general-purpose one. Several local men who had witnessed Thunder's victory volunteered to time his training runs, using pocket watches to track his progress over measured distances. What surprised Sarah most was her own excitement. She had never considered herself competitive, yet the prospect of testing Thunder against the best horses in the territory filled her with a thrilling anticipation. This wasn't just about the potential winnings anymore. It was about proving what she had known from the moment she bid her single dollar, that Thunder was extraordinary. Training began in earnest. Each morning before the town awoke, Sarah and Thunder would work on the flat meadow outside town where the local races had been held. Hawkins taught her about proper racing starts, how to position herself to reduce wind resistance, and most importantly, how to gauge Thunder's energy to ensure he had enough left for a final push to the finish. The thoroughbred's greatest gift is its heart, Hawkins explained as they watched Thunder cool down after a particularly fast run. When other horses begin to tire, a true champion finds something extra within. Your Thunder has that quality. As the weeks passed, Sarah's confidence grew alongside Thunder's conditioning. The horse thrived under the structured training, his muscle definition improving even further, his already impressive speed increasing with each session. Times that had impressed the local men with pocket watches now left them shaking their heads in disbelief. 2 days before they were set to depart for Cheyenne, Sarah received an unexpected visitor at the livery. Herman Vogel, Thunder's former owner, arrived with 2 companions just as she was finishing the evening feeding. "I hear my old horse has made quite a recovery," Vogel said without preamble, his gaze fixed on Thunder in his stall. "Remarkable what a simple rest can accomplish." "It was more than rest," Sarah replied coldly, remembering how the man had been willing to send Thunder to slaughter rather than invest in proper treatment. "It was 2 months of daily care." Vogel waved a dismissive hand. "Nevertheless, I've come to rectify a situation. There was clearly a misunderstanding at the auction. I never intended to sell a thoroughbred of this quality for a single dollar." Sarah felt ice form in her stomach. The auction was legal and binding. "Thunder is mine now." "Oxford's Warning," Vogel corrected, using Thunder's registered name, "is a valuable animal that was temporarily impaired. I'm prepared to be generous $50 to compensate for your time and effort." "That's a handsome profit on your investment." One of Vogel's companions, a thin man with a scar across his chin, stepped forward. "Mr. Vogel is being more than fair, miss. A woman has no business owning a racehorse anyway." Sarah stood her ground, though her heart raced. Thunder was sold at public auction. "I have witnesses and a bill of sale. Your offer is declined." Vogel's expression hardened. "I understand you're planning to race him at the Cheyenne Fair. I strongly advise you to reconsider, Miss Jensen. Racing can be a dangerous sport, especially for those unfamiliar with its complexities." The threat wasn't subtle. Before Sarah could respond, Cooper emerged from the tack room, a pitchfork in hand. "Evening, gentlemen," he said, his tone deceptively casual. "Stables closing for the night. I'm sure whatever business you have can wait for daylight hours." Vogel assessed the situation, then smiled thinly. "Of course. We'll continue this discussion another time, Miss Jensen. Do consider my offer carefully." After they departed, Cooper set the pitchfork aside with a scowl. "Vogel's a poor loser. Always has been. But he has connections in Cheyenne you'd be wise to watch for." Sarah nodded, the excitement of the upcoming race now tempered by a new concern. Do you think he'd actually try to harm Thunder? Not the horse, he's too valuable. But there are ways to ensure a horse loses that don't involve damaging it permanently. Cooper's expression was grave. Don't accept food or water for Thunder from anyone you don't know personally. And don't let him out of your sight once you reach Cheyenne. That night, Sarah slept in the livery stable, a blanket spread on the straw beside Thunder's stall. The horse occasionally lowered his head to nuzzle her hair, as if sensing her concern and offering reassurance. "We've come too far to be intimidated now," she whispered, reaching up to stroke his velvet muzzle. "Whatever Vogel and his friends try, we'll be ready." The journey to Cheyenne took 2 full days by wagon, with frequent stops to allow Thunder to rest and stretch his legs. Sarah had saved enough to hire a proper horse transport, with Cooper accompanying them to help manage the journey and provide an extra set of watchful eyes. They arrived in Cheyenne to find the city transformed by the territorial fair. Streets bustled with visitors, vendors hawked wares from temporary stalls. And the fairgrounds on the edge of town had been converted into a showcase for the territory's finest livestock, produce, and crafts. The racetrack, a proper oval unlike the straight course in Laramie, had been freshly groomed for the weekend's events. Hawkins met them at the designated stable area, helping to settle Thunder into a secure stall. "Entries confirmed," he reported. "Race is day after tomorrow, which gives him time to recover from the journey. There are 12 horses entered, including some very good ones." Sarah surveyed their competition as Hawkins pointed out the other entrants. Most were working ranch horses like those Thunder had faced in Laramie, sturdy and fast but lacking his thoroughbred lineage. 2, however, were clearly bred for speed, as sleek black, gelding from a Colorado ranch, and a bay mare with the distinctive confirmation of quality breeding. "The black is Midnight Rambler," Hawkins explained. "Won 3 races in Denver this spring. The bay is Prairie Fire, owned by a banker from Cheyenne. Both are half thoroughbred at least, and both have professional jockeys." "Professional jockeys?" Sarah repeated, suddenly aware of a detail she'd overlooked. "But I was planning to ride Thunder myself." Hawkins exchanged a glance with Cooper. "That might be complicated," he said carefully. "Women don't typically race professionally, especially not in an event of this size." "There's no rule against it," Cooper interjected, checking the race notice posted nearby. "Entry requirements specify the horse and owner, but say nothing about the rider." "There may not be a written rule," Hawkins acknowledged, "but there's certainly tradition. You'd face resistance." Sarah stroked Thunder's neck, considering the situation. The horse had never been ridden by anyone else since she'd purchased him. She knew his rhythms, his signals, the particular way he responded to guidance. Introducing the new rider now, days before the most important race of his life, seemed foolhardy at best. "I'm riding him," she decided. "If they want to disqualify us, they'll have to find a written rule that says they can." Hawkins looked like he might argue further, then shrugged. "It's your decision. I'll warn the race officials to expect unconventional participation." That evening, as Sarah was returning from exercising Thunder, she encountered a familiar and unwelcome figure examining the race entries. Herman Vogel turned as she approached, his smile coldly triumphant. "Miss Jensen, I see Oxford's Warning is entered in tomorrow's main event. Ambitious. His name is Thunder now," Sarah replied evenly. "And yes, we're racing." Vogel chuckled. "I've entered a horse myself. Fortunate timing, wouldn't you say? Perhaps we'll finally see which of us is the better judge of horseflesh." A chill ran through Sarah as she scanned the entry list. There, added after she'd last checked, was a new name, Stormfront, owner H. Vogel. "You didn't bring a horse with you," Sarah observed, having monitored the arrivals at the stables throughout the day. "Already here," Vogel replied smoothly. "I have business interests in Cheyenne. Stormfront has been training on this very track for weeks." He touched the brim of his hat in mock courtesy. May the best horse win, Miss Jensen. Though I think we both know which one that will be." As Vogel walked away, Sarah felt a flicker of doubt. Had she been overconfident? Thunder had only raced once on a straight course against local horses. This would be a proper oval track against experienced competition, including a horse specifically selected by Vogel to reclaim his lost pride. Cooper found her still standing there, staring at the entry list. "Vogel's entered a horse," she told him. "Named Stormfront. Have you heard of it?" Cooper frowned. "Can't say I have, which is unusual. I know most of the faster horses in the territory." He squeezed her shoulder reassuringly. "Don't let him rattle you. Thunder's special. You know that better than anyone." The morning of the race dawned clear and warm. The fairgrounds filled early with spectators eager to witness the territorial championship, the most prestigious race of the year. As Sarah prepared Thunder for the event, she could feel the excitement building, the murmur of the crowd growing as post time approached. Hawkins arrived at the stable, carrying a bundle wrapped in cloth. "Thought you might want this," he said, unveiling a jockey's silk shirt in vibrant blue. "It was my father's. Might be a bit large, but it's better than riding in a dress." Sarah accepted the gift with gratitude, changing into the racing attire behind a discreet screen Cooper arranged in the tack room. The shirt was indeed too large, but she secured it with pins and tucked it into her divided riding skirt, completing the outfit with her own boots and a cap to secure her hair. When she emerged to lead Thunder toward the track, she was met with stares and whispers. A woman preparing to race professionally was unprecedented enough to draw attention even amid the fair's many attractions. The race officials looked uncomfortable as she approached the paddock where horses were gathering before the race. One portly man with an official badge stepped forward, clearing his throat nervously. "Miss Jensen, I understand you intend to ride your own horse in this race." "That's correct," Sarah replied, keeping her voice steady despite the fluttering in her stomach. "While there's no specific rule prohibiting it, I must advise against it. Racing can be dangerous, especially in a field of 12 horses. Perhaps one of the local jockeys—" "I'm riding Thunder," Sarah interrupted firmly. "We qualified together and will race together." The official seemed about to object further when a new voice joined the conversation. "Let her ride." Herman Vogel approached, leading a magnificent chestnut stallion that bore a striking resemblance to Thunder, though heavier through the chest and shoulders. "If Miss Jensen wishes to risk her neck, that's her decision. Personally, I find her confidence admirable if misplaced." The official looked between them, then shrugged in resignation. "On your own head be it, miss. You'll need to weigh in like the other jockeys." As Sarah led Thunder toward the scales, she studied Vogel's horse with growing unease. Stormfront was clearly a thoroughbred of excellent quality, muscled and gleaming with health. The resemblance to Thunder was uncanny, suggesting similar bloodlines. "Beautiful animal, isn't he?" Vogel commented, noting her inspection. "Stormfront is Oxford's Warning's half-brother. Same sire, different dam. I acquired him specifically after recognizing the potential in the bloodline potential I foolishly overlooked when your horse went lame." The revelation struck Sarah like a physical blow. Vogel hadn't just entered any horse. He had deliberately sought out Thunder's closest relative, a horse with the same racing heritage, but without the history of injury. "Thunder's still the better horse," she said, with more confidence than she felt. Vogel smiled thinly. "We shall see." The weighing process confirmed what Sarah already knew. She was significantly lighter than the male jockeys, giving Thunder a slight advantage. This small victory boosted her spirits as she mounted and joined the other riders in the post-parade. The crowd's reaction to her presence was mixed. Some cheered encouragingly, particularly women in the stands who seemed delighted by her defiance of convention. Others muttered disapproval or laughed outright at the idea of a woman competing against professional jockeys. Thunder, however, was magnificent. He pranced proudly, clearly energized by the atmosphere and the competition. As they circled the track, Sarah could feel him gathering himself, ready to prove once again what she had known from the beginning, that he was born to run. Drawing position 5, put Thunder in the middle of the starting line. To his left was the black gelding Hawkins had identified as Midnight Rambler. To his right, in an arrangement that could hardly be coincidental, was Stormfront with a professional jockey in Vogel's green and gold colors. As the horses settled into position, Sarah took a deep breath, centering herself. The noise of the crowd faded as she focused entirely on the task before them. Thunder stood perfectly still, every muscle tense with anticipation. The starter raised his pistol. "Riders ready!" The report of the gun was lost in the thunder of hooves as 12 horses surged forward simultaneously. Thunder broke well, accelerating smoothly into the first turn. Sarah kept him tucked in the middle of the pack, remembering Hawkins' advice about saving energy for the final stretch. The track was a half-mile oval, with the race covering 2 full circuits. As they completed the first turn, Sarah assessed their position. Midnight Rambler had taken the lead, setting a blistering pace with Stormfront close behind. Thunder was running 5th, comfortably in the main group, but not challenging the leaders yet. Sarah could feel Thunder wanting to accelerate, his powerful muscles bunching with each stride, but she held him steady. "Not yet," she murmured, barely audible above the drumming of hooves. "Wait for it." They completed the first lap with positions largely unchanged. Midnight Rambler still led, though by a diminished margin as the pace began to tell. Stormfront had moved up to challenge, running easily with his professional jockey perfectly balanced above him. As they entered the backstretch of the final lap, Sarah gave Thunder his head slightly. The thoroughbred responded immediately, lengthening his stride to pass 2 tiring horses. They moved into 3rd position, closing the gap with the leaders. Rounding the final turn, Sarah could see Stormfront overtaking Midnight Rambler, the 2 horses now neck and neck at the front. The crowd was on its feet, roaring encouragement as the finish line approached. "Now, Thunder," Sarah urged, shifting her weight forward slightly and giving the horse complete freedom. "Show them what you can do." Thunder's response was electric. It was as if he had been holding something in reserve, waiting for this precise moment to reveal his true power. His stride lengthened impossibly, eating up the ground between them and the leaders with every powerful thrust of his hindquarters. They caught Midnight Rambler first, the black gelding falling behind as his early pace exacted its toll. Then they were alongside Stormfront, the 2 chestnut thoroughbreds, brothers separated by fate and fortune racing stride for stride down the final straight. Stormfront's jockey, sensing the challenge, applied his crop sharply. The stallion surged, finding another gear that momentarily opened a gap between them. For a heartbreaking instant, Sarah thought they might have met their match. But Thunder wasn't finished. As Hawkins had predicted, when other horses began to falter, the true champion found something extra. With a burst of speed that drew gasps from the crowd, Thunder closed the gap and then, in the final 50 yards, pulled ahead decisively. They crossed the finish line a full length in front of Stormfront, with Midnight Rambler a distant 3rd. The roar from the crowd was deafening. The unexpected victory of woman and supposedly lame horse over professional jockeys and established champions, creating an instant legend. As Sarah slowed Thunder to a canter and then a trot, circling back toward the winner's enclosure, she caught sight of Vogel's face. The mix of fury and disbelief gave way to a calculating coldness that sent a chill through her, despite the warmth of the day and her exertion. This victory, she realized, had just made a powerful enemy even more determined. Yet as Thunder pranced beneath her, head high and nostrils flared, Sarah couldn't bring herself to regret a moment of their journey. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, the $1 horse and the woman who had believed in him when no one else would. The Cheyenne Daily Gazette's front page declared, "Woman Jockey Defeats Territory's Finest." Beneath the headline was a detailed account of Thunder's victory, complete with quotes from astonished spectators and grudging praise from racing officials. By the time Sarah and Cooper began their journey back to Laramie, the story had spread throughout the territory. The purse, $250, represented more money than Sarah had ever possessed at one time. After paying Cooper for his help and settling their expenses, she still had over $200 remaining. It was enough to make a substantial down payment on a small parcel of land, the dream that had brought her west in the first place. Yet as they traveled, Sarah found her plans shifting. The excitement of racing, the thrill of competition, and most importantly, the joy she'd seen in Thunder as he ran had awakened something new within her. There was more to this partnership than a single victory, more potential than she had originally imagined. "What will you do now?" Cooper asked as their wagon rumbled along the dusty road toward Laramie. "Buy that land you've been saving for?" Sarah stroked Thunder's neck as he traveled comfortably in the specially designed transport section of the wagon. "I'm not sure anymore. There are other races, bigger purses." Cooper nodded thoughtfully. "Denver's fall racing circuit starts next month. Purses there are twice what Cheyenne offers. Could we win there?" Sarah asked. "After what I saw yesterday?" Cooper grinned. "You could win anywhere. But Denver's different, bigger tracks, professional operations, Eastern money. You'd need proper training facilities, not just early morning gallops outside town." The seed of an idea took root in Sarah's mind. "What about Willow Creek?" Cooper glanced at her sharply. "The old McDermott place? It's been abandoned since Jack McDermott died last winter. 15 acres with a small stable and access to the creek," Sarah continued. "The land agent in Laramie mentioned it before I bought Thunder. Said it needed work, but had good potential. The price was $700. Too much for a single woman with a seamstress job," Cooper observed. "But not too much for the owner of the fastest horse in the territory," Sarah countered. "If we can win in Denver, I could have enough for the full purchase by winter." Cooper was silent for a long moment, considering. "It's a risk," he finally said. "Racing's never a sure thing, and you'd be competing against horses brought in from Kentucky and California, not just local stock." "Life's never a sure thing," Sarah replied, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "My parents taught me that much before they died. But sometimes you have to recognize when opportunity gallops right up to your door." Cooper chuckled at her metaphor. "Well, if anyone can make it work, it's you and that miracle horse of yours." Their return to Laramie brought a hero's welcome. Word of Thunder's victory had preceded them, and a small crowd gathered as they drove down Main Street. Children ran alongside the wagon, hoping for a glimpse of the famous horse. Local men who had witnessed Thunder's first race called out congratulations, claiming they'd known all along he was special. Even Mrs. Holloway, Sarah's normally reserved landlady, was waiting on the porch of her boarding house with an uncharacteristic smile. "The whole town's talking about you," she said as Sarah approached. "Never thought I'd see the day when Laramie would be proud of a woman racing horses." Life changed rapidly after that. Sarah gave notice at her seamstress job, focusing instead on preparing Thunder for the Denver racing circuit. Cooper, recognizing the potential of their partnership, offered her full-time work at the livery with flexible hours that allowed for Thunder's training. Several local businessmen, seeing an opportunity to share in the glory of a hometown champion, offered sponsorship to help cover the costs of traveling to Denver. Sarah used part of her winnings to secure a 30-day option on the Willow Creek property, giving her the right to purchase it if her Denver gambit succeeded. The 15 acres were overgrown and the small cabin needed substantial repairs, but the location was perfect, close enough to town for convenience, but with the privacy and space needed for proper training. Amidst these preparations, Vogel's shadow loomed. He had returned to Laramie shortly after Sarah, establishing himself at the town's best hotel and making his presence known at social gatherings. Though he made no direct move against her, his pointed comments about beginner's luck and the unpredictability of thoroughbreds served as reminders that he had not accepted his defeat gracefully. "He's up to something," Cooper warned one evening as they observed Vogel deep in conversation with several local men at the saloon across from the livery. "Been asking questions about your training schedule, where you exercise Thunder." Sarah had noticed the increased attention unknown men watching from a distance as she worked Thunder at dawn, strangers inquiring at the livery about the horse's care routines. She had taken to varying her schedule and never working Thunder without Cooper or another trusted friend nearby. 2 weeks before they were set to depart for Denver, the first direct challenge came. Sarah arrived at the stable one morning to find a notice posted prominently on the door. "Match Race Challenge $500 purse. Stormfront vs. Thunder, 1 mile. September 15th, Laramie Flats." Cooper was already examining the notice when Sarah approached. "Vogel's forcing your hand," he observed. $500 is a fortune around here. People will talk if you refuse." "It's a trap," Sarah replied, studying the terms. "September 15th is just 3 days before we're supposed to leave for Denver. Even if Thunder wins without injury, he'd have no recovery time before facing the Denver circuit." Cooper nodded grimly. "Exactly. Vogel doesn't just want to beat you. He wants to ensure you never make it to Denver at all. Either Thunder loses here, destroying his reputation before the bigger races, or he wins but is too exhausted to perform well in Denver." "So we decline," Sarah said firmly, tearing down the notice. "Not so simple," Cooper cautioned. "Vogel's been working the town, building interest. There's already betting action. If you refuse outright, some folks will say it's because you know Thunder can't really beat Stormfront, that Cheyenne was just luck. Your Denver sponsors might reconsider their support." Sarah paced the stable aisle, frustration building. She had come west seeking independence, a chance to build something of her own through honest work. Instead, she found herself entangled in a wealthy man's vendetta, her dreams and Thunder's welfare held hostage to his wounded pride. "There has to be another way," she insisted. "Something that protects Thunder while still preserving our reputation." The solution came from an unexpected source. Miles Hawkins arrived in Laramie that afternoon, having followed the growing controversy surrounding Vogel's challenge. After examining the situation, he suggested a counteroffer. "Accept the match race," he proposed as they sat in Cooper's small office behind the livery. "But on your terms, not Vogel's. What terms could possibly make this worthwhile?" Sarah asked skeptically. Hawkins smiled. "First, move the date to after the Denver circuit. That removes the timing trap. Second, increase the stakes, not just money, but something Vogel truly values." "His pride is all he seems to care about," Cooper observed. "Not quite," Hawkins corrected. "There's also Stormfront. Propose a match race with both horses at stake, winner takes both." Sarah's eyes widened at the audacity of the suggestion. He'd never agree to risk Stormfront. "He might," Hawkins countered, "if his alternative is public embarrassment." Vogel's painted himself as the wronged party, the experienced horseman challenging the upstart woman who got lucky. If you counter with these terms and he refuses, it suggests he doesn't truly believe Stormfront can win. The strategy was bold, perhaps even reckless, but it carried a certain elegant justice. If Vogel truly believed his horse was superior, he should be willing to back that belief with the ultimate wager. The next morning, Sarah posted her response beside the remains of Vogel's challenge. Counter-offer match race accepted after the Denver racing. Circuit concludes in October. Purse, $500 plus ownership transfer of losing horse to winning owner. Terms non-negotiable. Vogel's reaction was swift and predictable. He appeared at the livery that same afternoon, his face flushed with indignation. "This is outrageous," he blustered, waving the counteroffer notice. No serious horseman would risk a valuable animal on a single race. No serious horseman would risk a valuable animal by scheduling a race designed to exhaust it before major competition, Sarah replied calmly. My terms stand. Race after Denver, both horses at stake, or no race at all. Vogel's eyes narrowed as he recognized the trap she had set. To refuse now would suggest fear, undermining the very narrative he had been constructing about Thunder's victory being mere luck. To accept meant risking Stormfront on a single race against a horse that had already beaten him once. You're more clever than I gave you credit for, Miss Jensen, he said finally. Very well. After Denver, both horses at stake. But remember, you're risking everything on one race as well. After Vogel departed, Cooper released a low whistle. That was either the bravest or the most foolish thing I've ever seen. You just wagered Thunder against a man who's already shown he'll do anything to win. No, Sarah corrected, watching Thunder doze peacefully in his stall. I just bought us time to get to Denver without interference. Vogel won't risk anything happening to Thunder before our match race. He wants him in perfect condition for when Stormfront beats him. And if you lose in Denver? If Thunder's reputation is damaged before the match race even happens. Sarah's expression was serene but determined. Then we'll face that challenge too. But I know my horse, Mr. Cooper. He won't let me down. The Denver racing circuit represented a significant step up from territorial competition. Held over 3 consecutive weekends at the mile-long oval track on the city's outskirts. It attracted quality horses from across the West, and even a few from eastern stables, seeking easier competition than they faced at home. Sarah, Cooper, and Thunder arrived a week before the first races, allowing time for the horse to acclimate to the new surroundings. They had secured lodging at a modest boarding house near the track, using part of the sponsorship money from Laramie's supportive businessmen. The racing environment was more sophisticated than anything they had encountered in Wyoming. Proper stables lined the backstretch. Professional trainers oversaw carefully scheduled workouts, and uniformed security maintained order throughout the grounds. More challenging still was the reception Sarah received. While women commonly owned racehorses, few attempted to train them personally, and none rode in professional races. Officials initially refused to accept her entry as both owner and jockey, relenting only when Hawkins, who had traveled ahead to smooth their path, produced documentation showing no specific prohibition against female riders. They've placed you in the 3rd race on Saturday, Hawkins reported after negotiating with reluctant officials. It's not the main event, but it's a legitimate race with a $200 purse. 1 mile, 8 horses. Who's the competition? Cooper asked, more concerned with practical matters than prejudice. Mixed quality. 2 local favorites, a horse from Santa Fe that's won there consistently, and 4 others with moderate records. Nothing like the championship at Cheyenne, but still solid competition. As they walked through the stable area, Sarah noted the curious and often hostile stares from other trainers and jockeys. A woman in their domain represented an unwelcome challenge to established tradition. Yet she also noticed something else, the flash of recognition when people realized which horse she led. Thunder's reputation had preceded them. That's the dollar horse, she overheard one groom whisper to another. The one that was lame and then won at Cheyenne. Impossible, his companion replied. No horse comes back from lameness to beat quality thoroughbreds. This one did. My cousin was there, saw the whole thing. Such whispers followed them throughout the week, a mixture of skepticism and wary respect. Sarah used the attention to their advantage, scheduling Thunder's workouts when other trainers were watching, but keeping the horse well within himself, never revealing his true speed. Let them underestimate us, she told Cooper after a particularly restrained morning gallop that nonetheless had onlookers murmuring appreciatively. The odds will be better. The strategy worked. By Saturday morning, Thunder was generally considered an interesting outsider, but not a serious threat to the established favorites. The betting reflected this assessment, with Thunder offered at 8-1 odds respectable for a newcomer, but clearly not expected to win. Sarah used the morning hours to walk the course carefully, noting the precise shape of the turns and the condition of the track surface. Unlike Cheyenne's hard-packed dirt, Denver's track featured a softer, more forgiving surface that would suit Thunder's flowing stride perfectly. As racetime approached, the butterflies in her stomach multiplied. This was no local competition or even territorial championship. This was professional racing at a legitimate venue. The grandstand was filling with spectators, many wealthy and influential citizens of Denver among them. Betting activity had increased, with substantial sums changing hands at the bookmakers' stands. In the jockey's room hastily converted to accommodate her presence, Sarah changed into Hawkins' blue silks, now properly tailored to her frame and emblazoned with a simple lightning bolt emblem. The other jockeys maintained a careful distance, their silence communicating more clearly than words their displeasure at her intrusion. When she emerged to meet Cooper and Hawkins in the paddock area, Sarah was struck by the formality of the proceedings. Each horse was led in a precise circle by grooms in stable colors, their tack gleaming in the afternoon sun. Owners and trainers conferred in hushed tones, offering final instructions to jockeys. "Remember what we discussed," Cooper said as he gave Thunder a final check. "Stay mid-pack until the far turn, then make your move. The favorite Golden Boy likes to lead from the start, but usually fades in the final furlong. The real threat is Midnight Star. He comes from behind." Sarah nodded, absorbing the information while keeping her focus on Thunder. The horse was calm but alert, his ears pricked forward as if already anticipating the challenge ahead. She ran her hand along his neck in a familiar gesture that comforted them both. "You've already proven yourself at Cheyenne," she whispered. "Whatever happens today, I'm proud of you." The call to mount came all too soon. Sarah swung into the saddle with practiced ease, settling into position as Cooper adjusted her stirrups one final time. Then they were moving toward the track, joining the procession of horses for the pre-race parade past the grandstand. The crowd's reaction to Sarah's appearance was mixed, some cheers, some boos, and many curious stares. She kept her gaze forward, back straight, presenting the dignified image Hawkins had advised. "They're watching not just how you ride," he had explained, "but how you carry yourself. Show them you belong." As they approached the starting gate, a new innovation that Denver's track had recently installed, Sarah focused entirely on the task ahead. Thunder had never started from a gate before, but they had practiced with makeshift barriers during training, and the horse seemed unperturbed by the new arrangement. Loading proceeded smoothly until they reached Thunder. As Sarah guided him toward his assigned position, a sudden commotion erupted 3 stalls down. Golden Boy, the favorite, reared dramatically, nearly dislodging his jockey and causing track hands to scatter. In the confusion, Sarah didn't notice the gate attendant's unusual proximity to Thunder's hindquarters until it was too late. As Thunder entered his stall, the man subtly pressed something against the horse's flank, a small device that delivered a sharp, painful jab. Thunder reacted instantly, lunging forward and slamming against the front of the gate. Sarah, caught unprepared, nearly lost her balance but managed to grab the horse's mane to steady herself. Thunder trembled beneath her, suddenly anxious in the confined space. Before she could signal for help, the starter's bell rang and the gates flew open. The other horses burst forward in unison, but Thunder hesitated, his rhythm disrupted by the unexpected pain and lingering fear. By the time Sarah got him moving smoothly, they were last by several lengths, the field already bunching into the first turn. "Steady," Sarah murmured, resisting the urge to rush. "We have time." The track announcer's voice carried across the grounds. "And they're off." Golden Boy takes the early lead, followed by Santa Fe Express and Denver Star. The female rider's horse Thunder breaks poorly and trails the field. Sarah kept Thunder wide around the first turn, avoiding the risk of being boxed in by other horses. The thoroughbred's stride gradually lengthened as his initial fear subsided, and they began to make up ground on the backstretch. Thunder beginning to move now, passing Riverboat King for 7th position, the announcer noted with surprise. The Wyoming horse showing good acceleration. By the halfway point of the race, they had improved to 5th position, still well behind the leaders but no longer hopelessly outpaced. Sarah could see Golden Boy still in front, but his lead had diminished as Cooper had predicted. Midnight Star, the closer, was beginning his move from the middle of the pack. As they approached the far turn, Sarah made her decision. Rather than following directly behind the main group, she guided Thunder to the outside, sacrificing some ground but ensuring a clear run without traffic. The horse responded eagerly, his powerful stride eating up the distance between them and the leaders. And here comes Thunder with a bold move on the outside. The announcer called, excitement creeping into his professional tone. The dollar horse from Wyoming is flying past Denver Star and now challenges Santa Fe Express for 3rd. Entering the home stretch, they had moved into 3rd position, with only Golden Boy and the rapidly advancing Midnight Star ahead. Golden Boy was clearly tiring, his early pace exacting its toll, while Midnight Star was hitting his best stride, moving inexorably toward the lead. Sarah asked Thunder for everything now, shifting her weight forward and giving him free rein. The thoroughbred's response was immediate and electrifying. He surged forward, drawing even with Golden Boy as Midnight Star passed them both. The finish line approached with Midnight Star a length ahead and apparently home free. But Thunder wasn't finished. With a final burst of speed that drew gasps from the crowd, he closed the gap with each powerful stride. They flashed past the finish line together, so close that Sarah couldn't tell who had won. The crowd roared, sensing they had witnessed something special regardless of the outcome. As she slowed Thunder to a canter and then a trot, circling back toward the winner's enclosure, Sarah patted his neck gratefully. "You were magnificent," she told him, feeling his sides heave with exertion. "Absolutely magnificent." The photo finish, another recent innovation at Denver's progressive track, required several minutes to develop and analyze. Sarah dismounted in the interim, loosening Thunder's girth and checking him carefully for any signs of distress from his troubled start. To her relief, he seemed no worse for the experience, his breathing already returning to normal. Cooper pushed through the gathering crowd, his expression a mixture of pride and concern. "What happened at the start?" he demanded. "I've never seen him hesitate like that." Sarah described the gate attendant's suspicious movement and Thunder's reaction. Cooper's face darkened. "Vogel," he muttered. "Had to be his doing, even if he's not here personally. We'll need to watch for that sort of thing in the future." Further discussion was interrupted by the announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have the result of the photo finish. The winner by a nose is number 4, Thunder, owned and ridden by Miss Sarah Jensen." The crowd's reaction was thunderous, not just applause but cheers and whistles, the spectators recognizing they had witnessed both an extraordinary athletic performance and a historic milestone. Sarah Jensen had become the first woman to ride a winner in Denver's professional racing circuit. As she led Thunder to the winner's circle, flowers draped across his withers and photographers' cameras, capturing the moment for posterity. Sarah realized that their victory transcended the $200 purse, or even the valuable ranking points for the circuit championship. They had overcome deliberate sabotage, institutional resistance, and the skepticism of experts to prove that excellence recognized no gender barriers. More practically, with 2 major victories now recorded, Thunder's reputation was secure. No one could dismiss Cheyenne as mere luck or suggest that a formerly lame horse couldn't compete at the highest levels. Whatever Herman Vogel might attempt in their eventual match race, He could no longer diminish what they had already achieved. As reporters pressed forward with questions about her background, Thunder's history, and their future plans, Sarah answered with newfound confidence. The path ahead, 2 more weekends of Denver racing, then the showdown with Vogel, and ultimately the purchase of Willow Creek, suddenly seemed not just possible, but inevitable. She had come west seeking independence, arrived with nothing but determination and a single silver dollar, and now stood in a winner's circle surrounded by admirers. The journey was far from complete, but in that moment of triumph, with Thunder's solid presence beside her, Sarah knew with absolute certainty that they would write their own future, regardless of what obstacles might still lie ahead. Thunder's victory in Denver reverberated throughout the racing world of the West. The Denver Tribune sporting page declared, "Woman jockey and dollar horse defy odds." Beneath the headline was not just an account of their win, but a full-page feature on Sarah Jensen's remarkable journey from seamstress to racing pioneer. Thunder's transformation from discarded, lame horse to champion captivated public imagination in a way few racing stories had before. The following 2 weekends brought further triumphs. Thunder placed second in a highly competitive field during the second weekend, losing by only half a length to a celebrated California thoroughbred. In the final weekend's championship race, with the circuit's overall points title at stake, he delivered another stunning victory, cementing his reputation as the most exciting new competitor in Western racing. Sarah returned to Laramie with over $800 in winnings and prize, money more than enough to purchase the Willow Creek property outright. The local bank, which had previously been hesitant to extend credit to a single woman with uncertain prospects, now eagerly arranged the transaction. The president himself handled the paperwork, clearly hoping to associate the institution with Thunder's growing fame. "The property needs work," the banker acknowledged as Sarah signed the final documents, "but nothing a woman of your resourcefulness can't handle. The bank would be pleased to discuss future loans for improvements, should you require them." Sarah smiled at his transparent change of heart. 3 months earlier, this same man had politely suggested she might be better off seeking a husband rather than attempting to purchase property independently. Success had a remarkable way of altering perspectives. The transition to Willow Creek happened swiftly. Local merchants, eager to associate with Thunder's success, offered discounted building materials. Several ranchers volunteered labor to repair the cabin's roof and reinforce the small stable. Cooper arranged for a proper training track to be graded on the flatter portion of the property, creating a 3/4-mile oval that would allow for proper conditioning. Through it all, Herman Vogel maintained an ominous silence. He had departed Denver immediately after Thunder's championship victory, leaving without congratulating Sarah or acknowledging their upcoming match race. The date for their confrontation was set for the first Saturday in November, giving both horses time to recover from the rigors of the Denver circuit. "He's planning something," Cooper warned as they settled Thunder into his new home at Willow Creek. "A man like Vogel doesn't accept defeat gracefully, especially not from someone he considers beneath him." Sarah agreed, but refused to let apprehension overshadow their achievements. "Whatever he's planning, we'll be ready. Thunder's beaten Stormfront before, and he's even stronger now." The rebuilt cabin, though modest, represented everything Sarah had dreamed of when heading west. Situated on a gentle rise overlooking the creek that gave the property its name, it offered privacy without isolation. From the small front porch, she could see Thunder grazing contentedly in the newly fenced paddock, the late October sun glinting off his copper coat. Independence, security, a future built on her own terms. All goals that had seemed impossibly distant when she'd arrived in Wyoming with nothing but determination and a trunk of meager possessions. Now they were tangible realities, and all because she'd seen potential where others had seen only liability. As the match race approached, interest throughout the territory intensified. Newspapers in Cheyenne and Denver ran speculative pieces about the Battle of the Brothers, highlighting the unusual stakes each horse wagered against the other. Betting pools formed in saloons from Laramie to Santa Fe, with odds fluctuating daily as rumors spread about each horse's condition and training progress. Sarah maintained Thunder's routine with meticulous care, gradually increasing his workload to peak just before the race. Cooper visited regularly, offering advice and assistance, while Hawkins sent detailed letters from his ranch near Green River, suggesting specific conditioning exercises based on his father's methods from Virginia. 1 week before the race, as Sarah completed Thunder's morning workout, she noticed an unfamiliar carriage approaching along the narrow road to Willow Creek. Few visitors came unannounced, especially at dawn, and Sarah instinctively tensed as the elegant black vehicle drew closer. To her surprise, the lone occupant was a woman elegantly dressed, perhaps 50, with steel gray hair arranged in a sophisticated coiffure. As the carriage halted before the cabin, Sarah approached cautiously, still holding Thunder's reins. "Miss Jensen, I presume?" The woman's voice carried a cultured Eastern accent. "I'm Eleanor Vogel." "Mrs. Vogel," Sarah acknowledged, immediately connecting the surname. "Herman Vogel's wife," Eleanor confirmed, descending from the carriage with practiced grace. "Though we've been estranged for some years. May I speak with you privately? It concerns my husband and your upcoming race." Sarah hesitated, studying the older woman's face for signs of deception. Finding none, she nodded toward the cabin. "Let me see to my horse first. There's coffee on the stove if you'd like to wait inside." After settling Thunder in his stall with fresh water and a measure of oats, Sarah joined her unexpected visitor. Eleanor Vogel sat primly at the small kitchen table, a steaming cup before her, examining the simple but clean interior with what appeared to be genuine interest rather than judgment. "You've done well with this place," she observed as Sarah entered. "Herman mentioned it had been abandoned for some time." "Herman discusses me with you?" Sarah asked, pouring her own coffee. Eleanor's smile was tinged with bitterness. "My husband doesn't confide in me, Miss Jensen. But his obsession with defeating you and reclaiming that horse has reached such proportions that even our limited communication has been dominated by the subject." "I see," Sarah replied cautiously. "And you've come to warn me?" "In a manner of speaking." Eleanor set her cup down precisely. "Herman Vogel is not a man who tolerates defeat, especially not from those he considers inferior by virtue of gender or station. His pursuit of Stormfront's victory has become concerning." "Concerning how?" Eleanor met Sarah's gaze directly. "He's hired Thomas Blackwell to ride Stormfront in the match race." The name struck Sarah like a physical blow. Thomas Blackwell was notorious throughout racing circles, a jockey of undeniable skill but questionable ethics. Stories of horses pushed beyond endurance, dangerous tactics during races, and suspicious accidents befalling competitors followed him from track to track. "That's perfectly legal," Sarah managed, striving to maintain her composure. "Mr. Vogel can choose any jockey he wishes." "Legal, yes. Ethical, no." Eleanor's expression hardened. "Blackwell isn't chosen merely for his riding ability. He's known for eliminating competition during races. There have been incidents, horses bumped at crucial moments, riders cut off dangerously, stirrups mysteriously weakened before races." Sarah absorbed this information silently, connecting it with the incident at the starting gate in Denver. Vogel had already demonstrated willingness to employ underhanded tactics. With Blackwell, he was escalating dangerously. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked finally. "You're still his wife, estranged or not." Eleanor's gaze shifted to the window, where Thunder could be seen in his paddock. "Because 20 years ago, I watched Herman destroy another magnificent animal through his pride and obsession. A horse named Tempest Wind, who had the misfortune of defeating my husband's prize stallion in a similar match race." "What happened?" Sarah asked, though she feared she already knew. Herman insisted on a rematch in unsuitable conditions. Tempest wind broke down during the race, a clean fracture that could have healed with proper care. Instead, Herman insisted the animal be destroyed immediately, claiming it was mercy, though everyone present knew it was spite. Eleanor's voice had grown distant with the painful memory. I've never forgiven him for that act of callous pride, nor myself for failing to prevent it. Sarah understood now. And you see the same pattern forming with Thunder? Eleanor nodded. Herman doesn't merely want Stormfront to win, Miss Jensen. He wants Thunder broken literally or figuratively. Blackwell is the instrument of that destruction. What do you suggest I do? Withdraw from the race? Sarah's voice hardened. Because I won't. Thunder and I have earned our place, and I won't be intimidated. Nor should you be, Eleanor replied with unexpected approval. But you should be prepared. Blackwell will try to force Thunder toward the rail during the race, trapping him in a dangerous position. If he can't manage that, he'll attempt to bump or cut off your horse at high speed. His tactics are brutal but effective. The warning was valuable, but it didn't resolve the fundamental problem. Sarah would still be facing a professional jockey with a reputation for dangerous riding, on a horse nearly equal to Thunder in ability. Thank you for the warning, she said finally. I'll be careful. Eleanor rose to leave, then hesitated. There's one more thing you should know. Stormfront has been training exclusively for short bursts of extreme speed. Herman believes Thunder's advantage is in stamina, not acceleration. Blackwell will try to establish an early lead and then block any attempt to pass. This insight into Vogel's strategy was perhaps even more valuable than the warning about Blackwell's tactics. With this knowledge, Sarah could adapt their race plan accordingly. Why are you helping me? She asked as she walked Eleanor back to her carriage. The older woman's expression softened slightly. Because 20 years ago, no one warned Tempest Wind's owner about what Herman was planning. This time, someone is standing against my husband's worst impulses. That deserves support, even if it comes from unexpected quarters. As the elegant carriage disappeared down the road, Sarah turned toward Thunder's paddock, her mind racing with new concerns and possibilities. The match race had just become considerably more complicated and potentially more dangerous. Cooper's reaction to Eleanor Vogel's warning was predictably blunt. Withdraw, he advised when Sarah shared the information that evening. Blackwell's reputation is well earned. I've seen horses and riders seriously injured after racing against him. I can't withdraw, Sarah replied firmly. It would mean surrendering Thunder's reputation and everything we've worked for. Vogel would claim we were afraid, that our victories were flukes. Better a wounded reputation than a wounded horse, Cooper countered, his concern evident. Or rider. Sarah understood his worry, but her course was set. We race, she said. But we'll be prepared for Blackwell's tactics. Over the next few days, Sarah adapted their training to address the specific challenges Eleanor had described. If Vogel was training Stormfront for early speed, Thunder needed to be equally quick off the mark. They practiced explosive starts repeatedly, developing Thunder's ability to accelerate rapidly from a standing position. More critically, Sarah worked on defensive riding techniques. Using makeshift obstacles on her training track, she practiced guiding Thunder through narrow gaps and around sudden barriers. If Blackwell attempted to trap them against the rail or cut them off, they would need the agility to escape the trap. As race day approached, Laramie transformed. Never before had the small frontier town hosted an event of such interest. Visitors arrived daily from surrounding communities and even from as far as Denver and Salt Lake City, filling the town's modest hotel and boarding houses to capacity. Temporary stands were constructed alongside the straight mile-long track established on the flat plain outside town. Betting was brisk, with Thunder established as a slight favorite based on his Denver championship. The morning of the race dawned clear and cold. A light frost silvering the grass of Willow Creek, Sarah rose before sunrise, spending quiet time with Thunder, brushing his coat to a copper gleam and talking softly about the challenge ahead. "We've faced doubters before," she murmured as the horse leaned contentedly into her rhythmic strokes. "From the auction yard to Cheyenne to Denver. Today's just one more chance to prove them wrong." Cooper arrived with the horse transport wagon as the sun cleared the eastern hills. "Ready?" he asked simply. Sarah nodded, leading Thunder out to be loaded. "As ready as we'll ever be." The race was scheduled for noon, allowing time for the frost to melt and the track to dry. When Sarah and Cooper arrived at the course, they found a carnival atmosphere already developing. Vendors had established temporary stalls selling food, drink, and souvenirs. Bookmakers called odds through the growing crowd, while musicians played lively tunes near the judges' stand. They stabled Thunder in a temporary enclosure guarded by 2 men Cooper had hired specifically for the purpose. After Vogel's previous attempts at interference, they were taking no chances with Thunder's security before the race. Sarah was checking Thunder's tack one final time when Miles Hawkins appeared at the stall entrance. "Quite a crowd gathering," he observed. "Half of Wyoming seems to have turned out." "Along with a good portion of Colorado," Sarah agreed, glancing up briefly from her inspection of Thunder's saddle. "I didn't expect this level of interest." "It's more than just a horse race now," Hawkins explained. "You've become a symbol, Miss Jensen, of determination, of seeing value where others saw only liability." He hesitated, then added, "There are a lot of women in those stands today, many of whom have traveled considerable distances to witness this race." The observation gave Sarah pause. She had been so focused on the immediate challenge that she hadn't fully considered the broader implications of her journey with Thunder. From a practical purchase made with her last dollar to a symbol of possibility for others was a transformation as remarkable as Thunder's own. "I've just come from the judge's stand," Hawkins continued. "Vogel and Blackwell have arrived. Stormfront looks formidable." Sarah had glimpsed her opponent briefly upon arrival. The thoroughbred was indeed magnificent, his resemblance to Thunder striking, but with slightly heavier musculature, suggesting the explosive speed Eleanor Vogel had warned about. "Any last advice?" she asked, securing the girth with practiced hands. Hawkins considered thoughtfully. "Blackwell will try to unsettle you before the race commence, intimidation, possibly even attempting to agitate Thunder. Don't engage. And during the race, remember that his tactics rely on predictability. He expects you to ride conventionally, to follow racing traditions. Perhaps the answer lies in doing the unexpected." It was cryptic counsel but resonated with Sarah's instincts. Conventional approaches would indeed make her vulnerable to Blackwell's experienced manipulations. The unexpected might be their best defense. As noon approached, Sarah changed into her racing silks in a small tent erected for her privacy. The blue fabric with its lightning bolt emblem had become recognizable throughout the territory, featured in newspaper illustrations of Thunder's victories. Donning it now felt like assuming a mantle of responsibility as much as a racing uniform. The pre-race ceremonies were brief but dignified. Both horses were paraded before the crowded stands, Thunder's appearance drawing appreciative cheers from the majority of spectators. Stormfront, equally impressive, received more measured applause, his association with the generally disliked Vogel tempering enthusiasm for his obvious quality. As the horses circled back toward the starting position, Thomas Blackwell guided Stormfront alongside Thunder, close enough for private conversation. "Impressive animal," he commented, his voice carrying a hint of mockery beneath the superficial compliment. "Shame about his rider. Racing's no place for a woman, especially not against professionals." Sarah kept her eyes forward, remembering Hawkins' advice about engagement. Thunder, sensing her tension, flicked his ears backward briefly but maintained his composure. "Nothing to say." Blackwell persisted. Perhaps you'll find your voice when you're watching Stormfront's hindquarters disappearing down the track. When Sarah remained silent, Blackwell's tone hardened. Your silence won't protect you on the course. 1 mile is a long way to ride, especially when things start getting competitive. Accidents happen so easily at speed. The threat was unmistakable, but Sarah maintained her focus, guiding Thunder toward the starting line with steady hands. Blackwell's attempt at intimidation had failed to provoke the reaction he sought, leaving him visibly annoyed as he positioned Stormfront alongside. The starting procedure was simple. With no gate available, the race would begin from a standing start at the signal of a flag drop. Both horses were positioned side by side, a judge ensuring perfect alignment before stepping away. In the moment before the start, Sarah caught sight of Herman Vogel in the official stand, his expression a study in anticipated triumph. Beside him, surprisingly, stood Eleanor Vogel, her presence clearly unwelcome, but apparently unavoidable due to her social standing. The starter raised his flag. "Riders ready." Sarah leaned forward slightly, gathering the reins with practiced precision. Beside her, Blackwell sat with the coiled tension of a predator preparing to strike. Both horses trembled with anticipation, muscles bunched and ready. The flag dropped, and both thoroughbreds exploded into motion simultaneously. Stormfront's early speed was indeed exceptional, but Thunder matched him stride for stride in the initial furlong. The crowd's roar faded into background noise as Sarah focused entirely on the race unfolding before them. By the quarter-mile mark, neither horse had established a clear advantage. They thundered down the track side by side, perfectly matched in speed and determination. Blackwell, clearly surprised by Thunder's early pace, shot Sarah a venomous glance before implementing his first tactical move. Stormfront began drifting gradually toward Thunder's position, forcing Sarah to choose between yielding ground toward the rail or risking physical contact between the horses. It was a classic intimidation maneuver, designed to establish psychological dominance while potentially setting up a more dangerous trap later in the race. Rather than resist directly or yield completely, Sarah guided Thunder into a slight acceleration, moving just ahead of Stormfront before Blackwell could complete his maneuver. The unexpected response disrupted Blackwell's timing, forcing him to adjust his position. The tactical exchange continued through the half-mile mark, with Blackwell repeatedly attempting to establish control of the race's geometry and Sarah countering with unexpected responses, accelerating when he expected her to maintain pace, shifting position when he anticipated stability. As they approached the three-quarter-mile marker, both horses remained remarkably fresh despite the blistering pace they had maintained. Here, Blackwell made his most aggressive move yet, abruptly driving Stormfront toward the rail in an attempt to cut off Thunder's lane entirely. Sarah had anticipated something similar based on Eleanor's warning. Instead of attempting to outrun the maneuver or yielding position, she executed the most unexpected response of all. She deliberately slowed Thunder just enough to fall behind Stormfront entirely. The crowd gasped at what appeared to be a surrender of position. Blackwell, momentarily confused by the unexpected tactic, glanced back to find Thunder now directly behind Stormfront rather than alongside. Before he could adjust, Sarah guided Thunder to the outside, clear of any potential trap. Now they were entering the final furlong, with Stormfront leading by half a length, but Thunder running free on the outside with clear track ahead. This positioning negated Blackwell's ability to interfere, without making an obvious and illegal move that would result in disqualification. It came down to a test of pure speed and heart. Stormfront was magnificent, driving forward with power and determination under Blackwell's expert guidance. But Thunder had discovered something essential about himself through his journey from discarded liability to celebrated champion. He thrived on challenges that would break lesser spirits. With 100 yards remaining, Thunder found another gear. his stride lengthening impossibly as he drew even with Stormfront. The crowd was on its feet, their combined voices creating a wall of sound that seemed to physically push the horses forward. Blackwell, desperate now, attempted one final flagrant interference, shifting Stormfront outward to bump Thunder mid-stride. The contact was jarring but brief, as Sarah had anticipated the move and shifted her weight to help Thunder absorb and deflect the impact. The momentary check in Thunder's stride might have been decisive for any other horse. But for the animal who had overcome lameness, skepticism, and deliberate sabotage, it was merely one final obstacle to surmount. Thunder surged forward again, drawing even with Stormfront with just 50 yards remaining. Both jockeys were fully committed now, all tactics abandoned in the pure pursuit of speed. The thoroughbreds strained toward the finish line, matching each other's stride for perfect stride. In the final yards, it came down to heart, that intangible quality that separates good horses from true champions. Thunder, perhaps remembering the days when no one believed he could even walk properly again, found something extra within. His final push carried him ahead by the narrowest of margins as they flashed past the finish line together. The crowd erupted, but Sarah barely registered the noise. She was focused entirely on Thunder, slowing him gradually with gentle hands, murmuring praise as his sides heaved with exertion. They had given everything, held nothing in reserve, and now awaited the judge's determination of the photo finish. As they circled back toward the official stand, Sarah became aware of Hermann Vogel's thunderous expression. Whatever the outcome, he had failed in his primary objective. Thunder had not been broken, physically or spiritually, by the confrontation with Blackwell. The announcement when it came seemed almost anticlimactic after the drama of the race itself. Ladies and gentlemen, after careful examination of the photographic evidence, the winner, by a margin of less than 6 inches, is Thunder, ridden by Miss Sarah Jensen. The crowd's reaction was immediate and overwhelming. A wave of sound that washed over the track as hundreds of spectators celebrated not just a racing victory, but the triumph of a story that resonated deeply with frontier values, seeing potential where others saw only liability, persisting against overwhelming odds, building something valuable from next to nothing. Hermann Vogel's fury was evident even from a distance, his face contorted with rage as he stormed from the official stand. Eleanor Vogel remained, her expression serene as she watched Sarah guide Thunder toward the makeshift winner's circle. The formalities passed in a blur: the presentation of the purse, the official transfer of Stormfront's ownership papers to Sarah, the congratulations of officials and spectators. Through it all, Sarah maintained her focus on Thunder, ensuring he received proper care and attention after his extraordinary effort. It was only later, as they prepared to transport both thoroughbreds back to Willow Creek, that Sarah fully processed what they had accomplished. Not just the victory itself, but the complete journey from that dusty auction yard to this moment of triumph and vindication. Cooper, supervising the loading of both horses, shook his head in wonderment. "When you spent your last dollar on a lame horse, I thought you were making the worst mistake of your life. Now you own the 2 fastest thoroughbreds in the territory, a training property, and from what I hear, half the racing men in Denver are asking when Thunder's first foals will be available." Sarah smiled, watching as Thunder and Stormfront, no longer rivals, but now stable mates, settled comfortably side by side in the transport wagon. Not bad for a woman who was told she'd never survive out west without a husband. "What comes next?" Cooper asked. "After today, you could sell either of these horses for a small fortune. Set yourself up permanently." Sarah's hand rested on Thunder's neck, feeling the steady pulse of the animal who had transformed her life. "Why would I sell the foundation of something much more valuable? Willow Creek Thoroughbreds has just begun, Mr. Cooper. Thunder and Stormfront are just the beginning." In the years that followed, Sarah Jensen's vision materialized more magnificently than even she had imagined. Willow Creek Thoroughbreds, became the premier breeding and training operation in the Western Territories. Its reputation for quality and integrity drawing buyers from as far as Kentucky and New York. Thunder's offspring inherited not just his speed, but his remarkable heart, while Stormfront contributed his explosive acceleration to the bloodline. Together, they created a racing dynasty that dominated Western tracks for decades, their descendants recognizable by both their copper coats and their indomitable spirit. More significant than the financial success or racing victories was the legacy of possibility that Sarah and Thunder created. Their story inspired countless others who faced their own seemingly insurmountable obstacles. A reminder that value exists where most fail to see it, and that sometimes the most transformative journeys begin with a single act of belief or a single silver dollar spent on a possibility that only the heart can truly recognize. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.